Hello and welcome to Factual Insider, the channel that strives to cover as many facts as possible. Today we will be discussing 10 facts about the game Sonic CD you may not know. If you find any of the facts to be interesting, please be sure to hit the like button, subscribe and hit the bell icon to receive notifications. With that being said, let's get started. Number 1. It's no secret that the blue blur loves to run and loves speed. After all, Sonic is in the Hedgehog's name. For many Sonic fans during the Genesis era of Sonic the Hedgehog may remember fondly that if you have Sonic idle or not moving, he will look pretty impatient just standing around. In fact, in Sonic CD, you better keep the Hedgehog from waiting up to 3 minutes because the impatient Hedgehog will let the player know he's out of there and will actually cause a game over. Number 2. After the release of Sonic the Hedgehog in 1991, Sega received great commercial success from the first entry of the series and had enough to support to initiate a sequel. Yuji Naka, who was the lead programmer of Sonic the Hedgehog, and Naoto Oshima, who was the designer of Sonic the Hedgehog, would end up creating different games that were meant to be sequels to the original Sonic the Hedgehog due to Yuji Naka's disinterest in the policies of Sega of Japan and wanting to work with Sega of America instead. Yuji Naka would end up working on Sonic the Hedgehog 2 while Naoto Oshima would be the director of Sonic CD. Number 3. The Sega CD was the first game console to introduce games in CD format or perhaps an add-on depending on how you view the Sega CD. Sega's new hardware in 1992 introduced a new concept for gaming that unfortunately most gamers did not share an interest in, resulting in poor sales for Sega's new hardware at the time. Requiring the consumer to also own a Sega Genesis in order to use the Sega CD also did not help, and Nintendo also fell into the same trap of introducing a CD-based add-on for the Super Nintendo called the PlayStation, which would have been a collaborative effort with Sony, which ended up becoming a rival console towards Sega and Nintendo. Despite the Sega CD not doing well in terms of sales, thankfully Sonic CD would actually end up becoming the best-selling game on the Sega CD, which sold over 1.5 million copies. Number 4. Across the globe, Sonic CD had entirely different soundtracks. Over in Europe and Japan, Sonic CD would share the same soundtrack, while in North America, Sonic CD would have an entirely different soundtrack. A decision made by Sega of America. The American division of Sega believed that the Japanese and European soundtracks sounded too extreme for the blue blur, so it was decided to give the American release of Sonic CD an entirely new soundtrack, which later on, many Sonic fans would prefer the European and Japanese soundtrack of Sonic CD over the American soundtrack into the later years of Sonic the Hedgehog. Number 5. Toei Animation is an animation studio from Japan that has been known for countless heavy hitters such as One Piece, Dragon Ball Z, Sailor Moon, Digimon and many others. The opening animation shown at the beginning of the game and the ending animation that plays during the credits and after the player has beat the game, are both works created by Toei Animation for Sonic CD and would later animate for another Sega title for the Dreamcast that was an exclusive release in Japan called Sega Gaga. Number 6. Before Christian Whitehead would become famous in the Sonic community for his work with Sonic Mania that released in 2017, the Australian game developer worked on Sonic fan games such as Sonic Nexus, and would start working on ports of classic Sonic titles. It would be in 2009 that Christian Whitehead would provide a video of Sonic CD playing on an iPhone with the Retro Engine, which was a game engine that he created. Pleased by Sega, Christian Whitehead would work on ports of other classic Sonic titles such as the original Sonic the Hedgehog and Sonic the Hedgehog 2 with his Sonic CD port that would release on the Xbox 360, PlayStation 3, iPhone and Android in 2011, which would also be the first port of Sonic CD released in North America that would include the Japanese and European soundtrack of Sonic CD. Number 7. Back in 1993, many game journalists, outlets, magazines, and reviewers all praised Sonic CD for its visuals and audio in the game, but argued that Sonic CD did not take full advantage of the Sega CD's hardware capabilities and also criticized frame rate drops during the special stages of the game. Critics were also divided between the original European and Japanese soundtrack compared to the American soundtrack for Sonic CD. To this day, Sonic CD is considered one of the best entries in the entire Sonic the Hedgehog lineup of games among fans. Number 8. As mentioned before, Christian Whitehead has been known for his stellar work with Sonic Mania, Sonic fan games, and ports of classic Sonic titles to modern hardware at the time. When Christian Whitehead created his port for Sonic CD, he made 2 extra zones for the game which were scrapped due to Sega wanting the port to be close to the original game. Number 9. Before many Sonic fans would become familiar with the special stages in Sonic CD that would require players to chase after UFOs, the game had more different plans for special stages before the game's release in 1993. Intended to be a sequel to the original Sonic the Hedgehog back in 1991, the game's special stages were originally planned to have special stages that were similar to the special stages from the original Sonic the Hedgehog. However, according to an interview with Hiroaki Chino, who was the game's planner, the developers thought the special stage would be too slow and would not take advantage of the hardware from the Sega CD, so it was decided to make the special stages that fans are familiar with today. Number 10. Many Sonic fans will agree that soundtracks in the Sonic the Hedgehog series over the years has had a great music arrangement and memorable tracks from the music from Green Hill Zone in the original Sonic the Hedgehog to the Crush 40 songs from Sonic Heroes and the Sonic Adventure series. However, Sonic CD, which was the first Sonic the Hedgehog title to be released in CD format instead of being placed in cartridge, also serves as storing the game's soundtrack, meaning that if fans wish to listen to the soundtrack of Sonic CD, they can literally insert the game into a CD player and listen to the game soundtrack just like a normal music CD. Well, there you have it. Those were 10 facts about Sonic CD you may not know. Hope that the video was enjoyable and entertaining. You are encouraged to watch more facts about gaming and other miscellaneous topics. See you next time.